Here to we'll go over a few things regarding exchanges, and first I can introduce the rest of the panelists. We've got Yovie here, and we've got Aaron, and we've got Yo, and I'll let them introduce themselves and the exchanges that they work at.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yovie, the CEO of IDAX Singapore. So a short introduction, IDAX is an international crypto exchange originating from GBC, stands for Global Blockchain Research Center, launched via the One Belt One Road initiative with the Mongolian government. So we provide our users with convenience and fast transactions. Glad to be here.
When did you guys launch, actually?
Actually, it's late 2017, early 2018.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, I'm Aaron Myung, and I'm a CEO of Korbit USA. And we're essentially the custody arm for Korbit, which is the first Bitcoin exchange in Korea.
Okay, I'm Nakagawa. I come from Monex Group. We're probably known more as an online broker, but in this part of the world, we're known as the business that acquired CoinCheck.
So if you could give us actually a quick recap on what happened at CoinCheck and who CoinCheck was and how you guys came to acquire them. It's kind of an interesting story.
Monex was looking at entering the crypto space for the longest time. And as you know or may not know, Japan, crypto has been regulated. And it requires a regulatory approval to run a business. So we've been filing an approval for as soon as they accepted it, but we weren't granted the license. And following the hack that happened in January this year, there was a window of opportunity for us to work together with CoinCheck. So that's how we actually operate a large crypto business now.
And if you could remind people what the size of that hack was.
So the hack was on the currency called NEM, and it was, I think, around $520 million US. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, yeah. Okay, I think just to kick things off, why don't we talk about the business model of exchanges? How do you guys make money?
Okay, so I will start off first. So IDAX is a crypto-to-crypto exchange. So on our platform, we have over 100 cryptocurrencies in terms of some is investment tokens, some will be the utility tokens. So our main revenue will be the transaction fees. So we charge about 0.2% of the transaction fees, and another one will be the listing fee, but that will be used for the operation, the maintenance of the wallet and operation of the exchange.
Yeah, so I mean, like all exchanges are pretty much similar in the sense that it's a marketplace between buyers and sellers of crypto. So you will make profit off of the fees for trading. For Korbit USA specifically, though, so we provide custody pretty much as a service. And our first customers are our parent company, Korbit, and we hope to open this up to other exchanges in the future, as custody is a problem that's really difficult to solve.
So we have an exchange business where we charge a very small transaction fee. We also make markets and tokens, which is generating the largest portion of our revenue. And then we also provide margin trading, where we provide margin to our customers. So in terms of the size of the revenue, it's the market making business and the margin trading business and the Bitcoin fees.
So, I've dealt with exchanges for many years. Never worked at an exchange, but I've been in crypto since 2011. And, I was buying Bitcoin when it was $8 a Bitcoin, but I lost all my money in the Mt. Gox hack. But back then, what I felt was very interesting is that, people liked Mt. Gox in the very beginning, but no one really trusted Mt. Gox. So, I mean, why do you think there's so much distrust, amongst users like towards exchanges? Where do you think that comes from?
I mean, definitely, like recent case of one of the, I will just share some the recent news. Like one of the Korean exchange is closed down due to the regulatory concerns, and then the Japanese exchanges are being hacked. So this does cause the tension of the market. However, I mean, we all know that crypto is a fairly new industry, and it is inevitable that issues do happen as the industry grows. But I don't think that should be the issue to deter us from creating a better and safer platform for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's hard to trust exchanges when they keep getting hacked, right? So I totally sympathize with you because my funds are also hacked on Mt. Gox as well. But yeah, I mean, I think not only just custody as that's a problem. I think overall in the ecosystem with all these ICOs and scams out there, that also causes this kind of aura of mistrust, or I think in the market right now.
Yeah, how about your thoughts on that?
There isn't much that I would add to these two panelists, but I think for us, obviously we will take the blame for somewhat destroying the trust that anyone had on the exchange when we got hacked. So we feel that is something that we really need to work to gain back the trust of our customers, to make sure that the customers feel secure, and also at the same time make sure that we work with the regulators to provide a more safer environment, or at least for the customers to feel that they're safer. It's never safer, maybe, but
more safer.
It's a notion.
I think, like, I remember back in the day when, OKCoin and Huobi and BTC China really first started, I was playing around. I was users of those exchanges as well, and playing around with their interface, I noticed that on the Chinese language side, they had a lot more support than they did on the English side. So it was like live chat. You can call a phone number and like actually speak to people. For me, trusting an exchange is really about like knowing who's behind it. So, I often wondered why isn't there more like live chat support or anything like that on exchanges? And like, do you guys have any thoughts on that, on like actual, like the support level and fostering trust through that?
Yeah, so over at Korbit's, for the exchange anyway, there's a phone number they can call, so that actually increases trust there.
Okay.
We've been providing all sorts of support, whether it be online chat, email, phone calls, but and our customer support team is probably at peak. It was over 100 people. So we put a lot of we've invested a lot in customer support, and no doubt that having a robust customer support operation was winning the trust of our customers. It's not the tech-savvy guys that are actually opening accounts. I mean, it's the average guy on the street that's investing $50, $100, that basically want, they have gazillion of questions, right? They want to hear the answers themselves directly. So yes, I mean, I think it plays a very important role.
So you've dealt a lot with the Japanese FSA. Is that your biggest challenge right now, is dealing with the FSA?
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's a challenge. Well, I mean, they're not asking for anything outrageous. They're basically saying that you have to have good governance, you have to have security, you have to have oversight, management, all these things, which is normal to have, and when you're operating an exchange business. I think the biggest challenge is obviously the market movement these days, which is kind of like sapping interest out of whoever was interested. And as I said earlier, winning back the trust of customers is essential. I mean, that's the only thing that we really care at the end.
Can you talk a little bit to the regulatory environment in Japan? Because I think maybe most of the audience here isn't really familiar with.
Right. Okay. So Japan was one of the few countries, or one of the first country actually, to regulate crypto. And as you know, regulation takes time to legislate. So initially, Bitcoin, I'm sure you remember, but Bitcoin was dubbed as the next payment protocol. The regulation in Japan started to regulate crypto as a means of payment or settlement. So it is regulated under the Settlements Act. But today, as you all know, the bulk of the activity of exchanges is not payments, but it's all probably trading, if not leverage trading. So I think there's a bit of catch-up for the regulators to do in terms of like updating what is permissible, what is not, and perhaps kind of like redefining the line between what is permissible under the Settlements Act and what is permissible under, for example, like the Securities Act, which are regulations for security brokers.
So does it feel like does it feel like the regulators are tightening up, or are they loosening a little bit?
Well, I think that because it was seen as a means of payment, with the Summer Olympics in 2020 coming up, I think that the regulator was somewhat willing to close an eye on how the market was developed, or at least be patient. Given the magnitude of hacks that we've experienced, I think they're kind of saying, okay, the game's over, so okay, right. So let's get a little bit more serious. So what they're saying, as I mentioned earlier, is not outrageous or ridiculous. They're just asking, if you're managing people's money, be a little bit more responsible for managing people's money. Yep.
So Aaron, if you don't mind, I ask you the same question. Like, how do you feel? So you work for Korbit, a Korean company, but you're in the U.S. How do you feel? Well, what's the regulatory environment right now in the U.S. and in Korea?
In the U.S., well, initially when we went to the U.S., we were thinking about creating a qualified custodian over in the U.S., but there's huge barriers to doing that. So lately, we've been actually focusing on creating just like more of the technical side of things to create the infrastructure around custody. So we basically right now function pretty much as an R&D company. Like as far as regulations in Korea, it's pretty much like self-regulating over there.
Interesting. And how do you feel things are in Singapore at the moment?
Yes, so I was first sharing with the Singapore because I'm from the Singapore branch. So the Monetary Authority of Singapore has recently just finalized their framework for the payment service bill to regulate the crypto payment in Singapore. So exchange are expected to get licensed there. So actually Singapore is one of the fast moving countries in terms of getting the proper regulation done. And also, I think I can share some about Mongolian government. Everyone would think this is a very interesting space because actually they are very open-minded and they have a very friendly crypto-friendly national policies because they think that this is an opportunity for the country to grow. And they believe in blockchain and technology. That's why they focus on building a very strong blockchain ecosystems through the Global Blockchain Research Center. And actually, they also issued the first digital currencies to the largest telecom companies in Mongolia. It's called the MobiCoin.
So there's been a lot of talks about decentralized exchanges, DEXs, and there's a couple of people here actually who are either working for or developing DEXs. Like, how do you guys feel that? Do you feel any challenges from DEXs? Do you feel any pressure to decentralize your own exchanges? Like, what are your general thoughts on the DEX?
Blockchain technology is built with the intention of decentralizing. However, the current blockchain technologies and the current issue that makes decentralizing a lot more difficult than we expected. So there is a need for centralized to exist to a certain extent to protect the user's interest. So in near future, when the blockchain technology is matured and they can solve the pain point of the decentralized, for example, security, then that will be possible.
How do you feel about that, Aaron?
Yeah, I hope that DEXs are more popular in the future. But it's like currently, if your mom can't manage your own keys in your wallet, then probably it won't, gain traction. That's my view. But I mean, if you're a believer in Bitcoin, then you believe in a decentralized future. So I wish for the best of DEXs.
Right. For me, like decentralization in crypto is like the goal that everybody's sort of working towards, but it seems to be pretty difficult, if not unattainable. If you look at what happened with Ether Delta in the U.S., they just got slapped down by the SEC there, and everyone immediately jumped up and said, "Wait a minute, aren't these guys decentralized?" But I think what a lot of people don't understand is that their token listing process is decentralized, their wallets are decentralized, but the company is not. So that's the point of failure that regulators can look at and slap in the face. So it would be nice if we can get a fully decentralized exchange, but at this point, it still seems like I use centralized exchanges, so for that reason. How about stable coins? How do you guys feel about stable coins?
So stable coins, I think that it is something that that we will have to have. I think particularly in the context of providing 24/7 trading opportunities across the market. The current banking system does not support that. So it'll be good to have a reliable stable coin. And I can see, so I'm personally interested in the Coinbase Circle Center kind of like coalition. It starts with $1, but if there's going to be euros and yen, I think it would make the opportunity to arbitrage much better to operate. And a much safer environment to probably park your funds. If you have these things. I think it was in a previous panel that somebody mentioned about stablecoins providing a safe harbor when in these kind of difficult markets. So yes, it'll have to be there. In Japan, just for a guide, the largest bank, Mitsubishi Bank, is in the process of issuing a stablecoin. Which I think is kind of interesting because they're not known typically for innovating.
Right. So UFJ launches their stablecoin tomorrow. You guys are going to list it?
Well, there's no reason to. Because we're regulated and we have a bank account, there's no advantage really to list it per se. But if the customers want it, why not? Yes, I think it will be very difficult if one of the other big banks issue when we'll have to list both and
right.
So.
Yeah, how about you guys?
Yeah, I will talk about the user's perspective. So with the recent fall of cryptocurrency is a chain reaction from the Bitcoins. So we noticed that a lot of users, they actually treat their altcoins into stable coins such as USDT, TUSD, as a form of hedging. So I think the users are more comfortable and they have more confidence with the stable coin because those are actually backed by the real world assets. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good that we have good choices for stable coins now because Tether is quite suspect, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tether has been kind of very controversial, so we say. From what I've noticed amongst our community is that people are definitely interested into going more into stable coins as a hedge, and we're actually Zilla we're an ICO marketplace, but soon we're launching an events platform. So you can get tickets to events in crypto, and we haven't launched yet, but we're launching soon, and we're speaking with companies who hold events and conferences, and they're quite interested in receiving ETH and then us exchanging it to a stablecoin for them. So I found that to be a very interesting conversation, and it seems like the B2B side is quite excited for stablecoins as well. So what do you guys think exchanges, or what can you do to increase overall crypto adoption? So this is one of those things where, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience who have their own crypto companies and ideas on how they can, get their mom to use crypto, for example. What do you think, what can you guys do as exchanges to help increase adoption?
Cryptocurrency exchange, it's actually gradually becoming similar in characteristic of the traditional financial market, such as stocks exchange and the commodity exchange. Right now, cryptocurrency exchange differs fundamentally in terms of the concept, and the values of the trading is different. But however, with the blockchain development and the adoption of the secondary market, there will be a lot of traditional traders coming, and also the traditional funds are coming. So exchange, in terms of their trading category, will grow in scale as well. So this will open us the more trading option for the market, thus increase the liquidity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By traditional funds, you mean like Fidelity and big funds like that?
Yes. Also, listed companies, they are also into this space.
Okay. What you are?
I think exchanges are doing a pretty good job in making crypto accessible. I think what's missing is actual use cases for a lot of the crypto out there. I think right now it's mainly speculation. So I think once crypto has better utility, I think that adoption will be there and fast.
Right. On CoinCheck, so when CoinCheck had that hack, through my community, people were really upset because it was basically seen as the easiest to use in Japan. So, and you mentioned earlier that the desktop version was a bit different from the mobile version. Yes. Can you speak a little bit to that in terms of user experience?
So, the philosophy of the apps that CoinCheck provided, whether it be a web app or whether it be a mobile app, was the philosophy behind it was like completely different. The web app was designed for people sitting in front of a computer monitor and having the luxury of a space of 23 inches, whatever it is. Whereas we designed the mobile app completely isolated from the user experience that we provide on the web app, on the mobile app, saying, what is the customer journey on a mobile app and trading cryptos. Obviously, one of the main factors that we took into account was the fact that volatility was much higher in cryptos than in other assets that people were used to. I think these were things that went into the thinking or designing of the mobile app, which is completely different. And this, in my mind, has helped acquiring the very average traders or crypto investors, which are probably very different from the other exchanges that we have in Japan. We have about 1.7 million accounts in CoinCheck today, which is probably a fairly large number. I think in terms of accounts, we're probably the largest in Japan.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's huge. I noticed that. The past, I'm sure a lot of people here notice it too. The past year, there's like an explosion in the amount of exchanges that are out there. Some of them having very similar interfaces. But why do you think there's been just a crazy explosion of exchanges?
Yeah.
Some exchange are coming as the second movers. They are just very new to the space, but some are niche. They are choosing to focus on very niche markets. For example, OTC exchange, and coming out is the STO exchange. So, sorry, what was your question again?
Yeah, like why are there so many exchanges? Like, here's the thing. I would think the barrier to entry for starting an exchange seems to be from someone looking from the outside in is huge, but is it really that easy to start an exchange?
Definitely not, especially for centralized exchange. You cannot imagine the amount of the manpower to support a coins. For example, let's speak about the listing of the tokens. So we have our internal risk management. So we were going through the whole process of the identify if they are a good project. So that's our clearance for the projects. And then when it comes to listing process, we actually cater a group of our team in terms of community management, marketing directors, and also ITs and security individuals to help the projects. Yeah, so we also help the projects to grow in terms of bring them to a global tour, bring them to meet our communities around the world. So this is not just something like you list the tokens and let them to
Right.
yeah, dial them on. Yeah.
The U.S. seems like there hasn't been this big explosion due to regulatory reasons, but Korea, like last month, I know four exchanges that started last month. What's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of exchanges in Korea. Probably most of them won't be around for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I would say that people are starting exchanges because exchanges are basically printing money, so it's a great business. But I would say that there's going to be a lot of consolidation happening like next year or so.
Like, yeah, I think we've seen a few exchanges disappear, not exit scams, but just kind of not being able to support volume. Do you see there being a lot of consolidation in Korea with exchanges?
I would say a lot of consolidation globally. Like our parent company, NXC, which is the parent company of Nexon, they acquired Korbit and also Bitstamp. So Bitstamp, that acquisition was a couple months ago. But these types of activities are, those bigger exchanges, they'll be acquiring a lot more exchanges. I think so.
Interesting. What are your highest costs at CoinCheck right now? Where does most of your resources go into supporting?
One, it's security. After the hack, the amount of investment, we completely ripped the entire system infrastructure, hardware, software control. We also implemented very strict monitoring procedures as well, and built a structure in terms of organization that will be able to react quicker. I don't think anyone with 100% certainty is going to say that they'll never be hacked. I think in our case, the 11 hours lapsed before we were able to detect the hack. So I think that would be probably, that we've been addressing. So security is the biggest. The second is customer support. Yes.
Right. Have you guys, in terms of hacks, are you noticing like hacking attempts coming in from certain regions in particular? So there's been a lot of news like in regards to North Korea, like hacking exchanges. Have you found that to be true? Or are you even able to detect that?
Probably. I mean, there's attacks coming all the time with exchanges, but.
Yeah, I think your Korbit's in Korean language, right? But so I would assume like that would be an easier target than, for example, Japan or Japanese. Or have you noticed any particular regions or other attempts?
No, I think there's probably some very amateurist-like hack attempts, but the more sophisticated hacks are probably you won't be able to tell where they're coming from. So I think if you can't tell, then probably it's a more sophisticated attack.
We're a crowdfunding platform, but we actually get a lot of hacking attempts, surprisingly, and for the most part, hackers are pretty careless. They leave breadcrumbs. I'm not even a developer, but I can follow the breadcrumbs. And there's been look, we're always looking to hire engineers and talented engineers, especially. But there's been a couple of cases where I've been able to trace it to an email and then find them on LinkedIn. And actually offered to speak with them, hey, let's talk. But I never really seemed to get a reply. But I just find it really fascinating and daunting dealing with the amount of hacks and nefarious actors in the crypto space. So that's kind of why I asked the question. So we're going to open it up to questions in a moment. If you guys have. So get your questions ready if you have anything to ask the wonderful panelists, or if there's anything you've ever wanted to know about exchanges, now's your chance. Before I do that, going forward, where do you see your exchange over the next year? How do you see growth? Where do you think growth is going to come from? What do you think is is it a new business that you guys are planning to open up, or is it the traditional crypto prices go up, a lot of interest come in? Where do you see growth coming from?
For IDAX, we are in fact in discussion with the Mongolian government for the implementation of the STOs. So for STOs right now is a big topic, everyone knows. So that can be our potential next steps. And also we have a mining site at Eastern Europe, which will be established on Q1 2019. Yeah.
So why the Mongolian government and not Singapore?
Actually, we started about 10 months old already. So back then, the Mongolian government offers more crypto-friendly national policies compared to Singapore. But we do have branches in Singapore now. We are going to comply. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Aaron, where do you think growth is going to come from over the next 12 months in crypto?
So I'll just speak for Korbit USA, not for the parent company, but I believe that growth from custody solutions is going to grow, particularly for custody infrastructure. If you're starting up an exchange, let's say in some country, you don't want to reinvent that wheel. So basically with the touch of a button, to be able to support, let's say Quantum or EOS, like these type of tokens. So basically for a monthly subscription fee, sort of like a SaaS model, that's what I'm trying to go for right now.
And that's B2B or B2C? So are you looking for
B2B, mainly with exchanges.
Right. Okay. And how about you? Where do you see growth coming from over the next 12 months?
So I come from the brokerage business, so I kind of see how the brokerage business or even the FX business has developed in the past. And what strikes as very, very different is crypto was pretty much a retail or unregulated market, whereas whether it be FX or whether it be equities, it started from institutional money, which gradually made its way to retail. So crypto is definitely the outlier. So I'm having quite a bit of hope or expectations for what's happening, particularly in the US, where a lot of crypto efforts are being focused on developing institutional businesses, whether it be exchanges or whether it be custodian businesses. This is still untapped. I think this would be very potentially interesting, and particularly in Japan, where there is no institutional investor who's touched cryptos yet.
That's what I was going to ask, actually.
Yes, it's untapped.
So is it untapped because there's no interest, or are you seeing interest increase?
Well, I think they've done their homeworks, and every time they try to go in, CoinCheck gets hacked, or Xife gets hacked, and they say, oh no, we're not going to do it. I think the big catalyst would be whether it's be the BACT initiative in New York. Is it next year? January next year, or the Ares exchange in Chicago, whichever, these large institutional grade exchanges start trading businesses, then I think it could be a catalyst for people to really start testing the waters.
Right. Okay. So I'd like to open it up to questions. If any of you guys have any questions in the audience, please raise your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. You have just touched the issue of institutional money. Actually, the real fight for institutional money has not started yet for many reasons. The markets are thin. There is no proper regulation in the space. There are no standardized markets, and other reasons. When institutional money finally comes, do you foresee competition coming from guys like NASDAQ or Chicago Mercantile Exchange, people who know how to package standardized products? And if you see that competition coming, do you consider that as a threat for existing digital exchanges?
Great question.
It's an excellent question. We put in a lot of thinking into this issue because it deeply impacts our business. But let me start with institutional business first. So the CME and the CBOE provide futures already. They're cash settled, so it's a little bit different. But nevertheless, I think the CME trades an equivalent of about 50,000 Bitcoins a day, which is probably bigger than most of the exchanges in terms of Bitcoin trading size. You're going to have the BACT initiative, and then you've got the AresX, and maybe you got CX, and these are all guys all in the U.S. that have been doing business with institutional investors for the longest time. So I think that they would come out of the woodworks once they come in. I mean, I know of a lot of the custodian initiatives also that's happening parallelly. So I do have hopes on that. Now, how would it impact our business? Obviously, transparency and liquidity is great. But if you're operating an exchange and you're providing liquidity to your customers, it also means that you can't provide a wider bid offer spread, compared to the other guys, because everyone has the same price. So I think it would evolve our business eventually to be less profitable, which is a concern. But yes, I think that's the general trend. But it would probably take a few years because these initiatives are primarily in the U.S. and Japan is technically a very different market. I mean, it's retail driven.
Aaron, Yovie, do you guys have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I guess there would be more competition, but essentially the pie is getting bigger, right? So everyone's going to be winning. And also, let's say if a big exchange was created here in the States, well, it's not here in the States, it's in Bangkok. But let's say in the States, you still need that fiat on-ramp, right? So I think those will always be existing.
Right. Okay. Do we have any further questions in the audience? No? Okay. I wanted to touch on one more thing. So retail versus institutional, I noticed that like CoinCheck also has custodial services, and they're really looking towards institutional money, and so is Circle, although Circle's relocated to Europe. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel like they'll be able to capture a big portion of that market, or will BACT or one of those guys really be able to take the lion's share of that? Yeah.
I thought you were asking.
I was asking. Yeah, but anyone can answer it. Okay.
Can I start, Aaron?
Actually, I didn't even just hear your question.
Yeah, so I'm asking you guys as well as Circle and Coinbase are trying to do custodial services right now and attracting institutional investors, but with the more traditional companies like BACT or those guys coming into the space, do you think they will capture the lion's share, or will it be traditional crypto companies that?
It's tough to say. I would say that the more traditional companies, if they were to enter early, then they definitely have an advantage there.
Okay. And how do you feel about that, Yovie?
Sorry?
Actually, how do you feel about that.
I agree with him. So as this market is still a lot of potentials. So for the early birds, they definitely are able to benefit from their early entry.
Right.
Yes.
From, my perspective is a little different, but seeing as, we were an ICO marketplace, but, I always thought as ICOs as crowdfunding. So we were a marketplace for crowdfunding projects, and of course we were looking for vetted projects. But then we had, some Silicon, I won't mention any company names, but companies with big, VC backing, all of a sudden they captured all the news, they captured all of the attention and kind of sucked the air out of the room. And I really felt, there's not many things, I don't really look at competition and think and worry too much about them, but when that happened, I actually thought like, holy shit, we can curse here. I thought, holy shit, if VC money or big institutions really make a run for this space, users aren't all that loyal to traditional crypto companies. They just want whatever system works the best or wherever there's going to be the most liquidity. So I really felt like to our industry, it really makes sense for us to think about that and, totally get our shit together in terms of hacks, in terms of service, and make crypto as easy to use as possible to kind of stave off this influx of institutional money. Do you guys have anything further to add before we wrap things up?
Well, I'm probably very happy to announce that as of today, we've resumed all the currencies that we provide to our customers. So it's fantastic news. And now we're focusing on getting the license from the regulator.
Congratulations. All right, I'd like to thank my panelists for this lovely event, and thank you guys. We'll continue the discussion out in the public area, but thanks and have a great rest of the conference.
Thank you.